Joseph, do you want to start us off?
Hey, okay, hi, hello everyone, and welcome to What's Next, Figuring Out Your Future Career. It's great to see everyone here today. My name is Joseph Tonway. I am an orientation team leader. But before we get started, I have a few announcements. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge that although we're together virtually today, the University of Manitoba campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and the Dini people, and on the home of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories and we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past. And we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous community in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. We also want everyone to be aware that this section is being recorded. Also, not that we expect this to happen, but anyone engaging in disrespectful behavior will be removed from the room. I will not be permitted to re-enter. I'd also like to mention that everyone will be muted and their video turned off on entry. Just a few words about questions. Keep in mind that this section is delivered by the Career Services Office on the topic of what's next, figuring out your future career. The presenters are very knowledgeable in the subject matter they will cover, but may not be aware of things outside the scope of the presentation. If your questions pertain to things outside the topic, you may want to search umanitoba.ca for more information. The University of Manitoba website is always a good place to start. Just use the search bar to ask questions. There are dedicated offices to help. Offices like admissions, international center, student life, and the first year center, just to name a few. Also, we often find that most questions that students have are actually answered during these presentations. So please hold on to your questions. I will make sure to get to them before finishing up. For now, the chat is disabled. Once we open it up for questions, please be aware that the chat is publicly visible and there is no private chat between participants other than host and co-host. Having said that, I'd love to turn it over to Trevor Lehman and Rebecca Balankrishna to start this section. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Joseph. My name is again Trevor Lehman. I'm a career consultant here. I'll let Rebecca introduce herself as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Balakrishnan. I'm also a career consultant and I'm so excited. Well, I was going to say to see your names on the screen. Hey everyone.
Yes, likewise. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. We really appreciate you being here today and spending an hour with us. So again, as Joseph mentioned, your video and your mic will be off for this presentation, though you're welcome to ask questions in chat at the end. We do know, though, that technology is sometimes strange and unpredictable, so if you find suddenly your camera is turned on or your mic turns on, you can go ahead and disable it again by clicking in the bottom left corner. Okay. So our goal today is really to talk about your career future in a purposeful way. And the reason I mention this is in career services, we believe that you have one career. It is a lifelong journey that you are on that involves multiple jobs, events, experiences, education, and all the significant moments in your life that affect it. So again, we look at it as you're going to be on a journey and you're going to have multiple things happen to you throughout that journey that are going to affect it. And that's sort of what our office really helps you focus on, is digging into that, really looking at what those factors are. Today we're going to be talking about some common questions and concerns that we get with students. We're going to be talking briefly just about happenstance and kind of making sure you're open and how to handle new and unpredicted events. And then we're going to be reflecting back and having some questions, as well as some upcoming workshops. So let's start with a little warm up here, though. I'm going to go ahead and start us off with a quiz. Don't worry, you're not being graded on it, just to see where people are at. Again, and then Rebecca's going to go through afterwards and have a little discussion with it. But again, the first question is, if I get 1 degree, will it set me up for a particular path, just one particular path? Second question, which of these are possible jobs you could get with a psychology degree? And there's 4 choices. Most of people figure out their career plan in first year and then head straight to a chosen goal. And true or false, career is one of the best predictors. Go ahead and answer them in the polling, and we're going to go through and discuss them a little bit. Okay. you haven't done so already, you can go ahead and complete the quiz. Give it about 15 more seconds. All right. Okay, perfect. Okay. Sign polling, share results. All right. Rebecca?
Sure. So the first one, wow, 100%. Everyone got this one right. If I get one degree, it will set me up for one particular path. Definitely not. That is one of the beautiful things about a university degree is that it opens up so many options. There's lots and lots of jobs out there that expect you to have a university degree, but often any degree will work for them. So that's one really cool thing about careers is there's no one option to get to where you want to go. Possible jobs with a psych degree. So every single job that was on the screen there, marketing manager, autism tutor, corrections officer, career consultant, all of those work with a psychology degree actually, and the right experience, which is really, really cool. So you can see just the diversity of options that we can have with a particular degree path. True or false, most people figure out their career plan and head straight towards it in their first year. Definitely no, you all agree with that one too, which is great. We're on the same page here. Most people don't know what the heck they're doing, even later in their degree. Even at this point, I still don't know what I'm doing, but still figuring it out, right? That's what life's all about. And then true or false, career well-being is the biggest predictor of overall well-being in adults. That is true. Good job, 100%. This is a good group. We got a small group right now, but I can tell you're all overachievers. You did really good on our quiz. So are even in this presentation. You should just be running this presentation. But it is true. And that's why career development is so important. We find that if you have well-being in your career, the rest of your life is usually doing a lot better too. I mean, that's a huge part of what you do in a week and in your life is spend time at work, right? So it's super important to make sure that what you're doing is meaningful for you and that you enjoy it, and we can help you with that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rebecca. So what do we do exactly? As a career consultant, one thing we do is we work with students from when they start their degree till the graduation and up to 6 months after grad. And we work with everyone from new secondary school or high school students that just starting university, all the way to people with PhDs, MBAs, these types of things, trying to navigate what type of work they want to do throughout their degree and when they graduate. We talk about volunteer and work experiences, and we get into like resume and job search and interview prep and all that stuff too. But we also explore a lot about what's meaningful to people. What do you value? What do you care about? And if, say, your first plan doesn't work out, which happens, what can you do so that you don't feel like you've wasted the time and energy that you put in? What have you learned about yourself, and how can we take that knowledge and move forward in another direction? So broadly speaking, one beautiful thing about my job is I get to hear everyone's stories about about career journeys and career paths. And though everyone has a unique story with unique variables, there's no two people who are exactly alike. We see common questions and concerns come up quite often. So I wanted to highlight 3 of them here. And we're going to do a little poll here. But basically the 3 types of concerns that come up are some students might feel that they don't have a career goal yet. They're really feeling kind of like they're wandering or they're really uncertain. And how do we find one? The second is those who have a plan but want to keep their options open and are looking at what else they could do with a degree. The third maybe have a plan, but they want to know how they could reach it and what that would look like. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the second poll here. Again, you can choose which type of student, or if you don't want to be put in a box, there's always that option too. Maybe guys, 30, 40 seconds, just go ahead. Okay. Good.
This is really interesting. It's similar spread to what we saw in our last workshop, which...
Yeah. People are open-minded. Some don't have a few don't have a career goal just yet. Okay. So share results. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely, Rebecca. We're seeing here a lot of people who are open-minded. Maybe they have an idea, but they're looking for alternatives. And then we also have one who doesn't have a career goal yet, and that's okay too. I'm going to start now by talking a little bit about, we're going to go through each of these, but we're going to start with those that don't have a career goal and what exactly that's going to look like. So one thing I want to emphasize is that if you're not sure what you have a career goal, this is sometimes like that big question when people ask, like, what do you want to do with your future? And I remember the first time I got asked that, it was 14 years old. I was in an English class, and I remember my teacher in the middle of class just throwing that question out there casually. If you haven't figured it out already, you should know what you want to do with your future. That hit me like a train. I was like, what? And it was really tough for me to kind of grapple with that. And sometimes we find students do grapple with like that uncertainty. And we know that that's kind of can be a little bit uncomfortable to not have everything planned out. The problem though is that it's really tough to plan everything out. I've never seen anybody who started their, at 14 decided their career all the way to 65, because events happen. As we know from even this COVID event that's happened right now, things that are unpredictable occur, and we have to learn how can we take those moments in and how can we adapt to them. Because we know, it always reminds me here of a Tolkien quote that not all those who wander are lost. So, the idea that you want to have some sense of a cardinal direction. You want to know if you're moving north, west, southeast, maybe towards an area. But you also want to be open to experience, and that if you run into an obstacle, if I'm walking north and I run into a tree, the solution is not to keep like hitting into the tree over and over and over. It's to look at it, see what I'm learning from it, and go around it. So, and this can be a really healthy and really effective approach to your career. Is you want to have a general sense of the direction you're going in, but you also want to be open to the experiences that you're having as you move in that direction. You want to be able to go around obstacles, and you want to take these new experiences that you have and reflect upon them and add them into kind of to what you know about yourself and what you know about the world around you as you continue on your career journey. And we know our labor market's changing, so having that flexible approach is really great. So that big question of like, what do you want to do with your future? The problem with that question is it's really broad, right? It's like asking like, what's the meaning of life? Not bad to consider, but really if we want to start making any headway, we have to kind of break it down into smaller questions. So we often, when we look at you, we start by looking at you, because there's tons and tons of jobs out there, and it's to narrow it down, we look at, well, what kind of courses do you like? What do you do in your free time? What subjects do you prefer? We look at your interests, we look at your values, and we look at your personality. These last three we actually have assessments for. And these are things, I don't say tests, I say assessments, because you can't get them wrong. There's not like you can get a wrong answer on some of these. And that will, what they do though is they help us give us a framework to describe ourselves better. I remember the first time I was at a job interview and someone said, tell me about yourself, Trevor. And I said, I'm a nice person. And they said, well, I'll give you that one. But these assessments can maybe help break down a little bit more about what we know about ourselves. However, each of these assessments, and we're going to go into the interest one to give you an example, but the main thing to know too is that these aren't like the Harry Potter sorting hat that you put on and it's going to say, you're going to be a dental hygienist, and that's going to be that. They're going to help us, give us pieces of the puzzle that can help us narrow down our options, but they're not going to be just definitively tell us what we're going to do for the rest of their life. If you happen to come across something like that, you can tell me about it. We'll make a lot of money. But a lot of these assessments can help us definitely give us pieces of the puzzle about understanding ourselves and the world of work. So you're going to see this really colorful hexagon. Looks kind of like the Settlers of Catan board game. And this was actually one of the assessments we used called the Holland Codes. It was made by a man named John Holland. He was a psychologist, but he was a psychologist that specialized in studying people who enjoyed their jobs and what kind of patterns they had between them. And he said, you know what? Everybody out there has 6 areas of interest within them. And we all have these 6 within us, but we typically have 3 that are our strongest, that we can see both in our work life and in our just in our general life. Like and these aren't what we're going to be good at as far as an aptitude or a skill, but these are what we're naturally kind of drawn towards in terms of interests. And we often find we get better at things that we're interested in doing. So we're going to have a poll here and see if any of these stick out for you, but I'm just going to give you a quick summary of these. So the realistic are these people enjoy working with their hands, building things, making things. These are the trades, your plumbers, your farmers, your carpenters, but they're also things like surgeons, dentists, where you're working using fine motor skills, police officers too. You're working outside, you're using your body, nature interpreters, these types of things. Then you get to investigative. These people enjoy, I like to think everyone's curious, but these people like to learn a lot about very specific topics. They're often analytical, they're kind of problem solvers. So your professors will be good examples. Research scientists, such as those researching the COVID vaccine, would be an example of someone with that investigative interest as part of their code. If these people study ideas, though, artistic are the people who are the creators. They like mashing together ideas, coming up with stuff that's uniquely their own. They tend to have jobs with more than one right way to do things. So writers, musicians, artists, but also people like art curators. You don't necessarily have to be able to draw or write to do this type of work, but you have to have an appreciation for it. They like visual things. Architects are people who are realistic and artistic, right? They like building things, but they also like to affect how the building looks and how it affects people. Teachers can have some of this too. You know, a school teacher that's very, makes less, you think about the best teachers you've had and how they made learning interesting and engaging. Speaking of teachers, well, now we get into the working with people. So social are people who are helpers. They like supporting others, caring for others, teaching others. Nurses, teachers, social workers, therapists tend to fall into this. They often tend to work one-on-one or in small groups, and they tend to have jobs that give you direct feedback. Because all of these areas, you can be helping people, but people won't necessarily be like lining up at a medical lab to high five you and tell you that they really liked how you did that genomics research. But people who are maybe working one-on-one with clients, you'll see more of that. Then we get to enterprising. These people work with people as well. But they are more on the influencing, motivating, or managing others, or persuading them. So lawyers, politicians, managers of all types, salespeople, as well as marketing and charity fundraising, entrepreneurs tend to fall into this area. And then we get to conventional. These people are structured. They work with data. They like jobs with often a right or a wrong, or at least a wrong way to do things, and clear steps to achieving those goals. So accountants are good examples, but also programmers, mathematics, and event planners and administrators. So I'm going to open up the next poll here, and we are going to talk about if any of those stood out to you. And again, Rebecca's going to talk a little bit about our career choices now and the upcoming workshops where you can take these assessments in more depth.
Absolutely. So if you're intrigued by these different ways of looking at who you are and opening up more ideas for occupations, we have a couple of ways that you can engage with that. I popped a link into the chat and I'm just going to paste it in again for anyone who came in a little bit later. That's a link to our handout. If anyone is watching this after the fact, you'll be able to find this on the final slide. We're going to have a slide up where you can just screenshot it so you have the information if you can't get into the chat when you're watching the recording. But in that, we have a link to register for a workshop we have called Career Choices, which is a smaller group, more conversational, where we'll chat with you more about your career and what's going on with it, and do some of these exploratory activities. There's also information in there about how to access one-on-one service, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. As well as our online services. So we have a career planner, which has assessments in it to identify your Holland code in a little bit more of a scientific way, as well as those other pieces. And then of course, when you work with us individually, we sometimes use these tools, but it's also a lot more conversational. We often are, like Trevor was saying, looking more at your story. So there's lots of ways we approach this based on you and what you're looking for and what's a good fit for you as you explore what comes next.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Again, we have a good spread here of different interest codes, and I want to emphasize that this is, again, giving us sort of a language to describe ourselves a little bit more in detail. And once you do one of those assessments, like the ones that will be available in the Career Choices workshop, We then look at what types of people who have the same code, what are they doing? And you might recognize some of these things like lawyer or nurse, but there's things like video game designers, floral designers, museum curators. And then we dig into these jobs. We talk about, if you're a museum curator, your work can be really different depending on if you're working at the Museum of Man and Nature talking about the natural world, or a Museum of Human Rights talking about how we can build a more inclusive world for everyone. We also talk about looking at the world around you and what's out there. If you look around you, virtually everything that's made, from like my smartphone, that's an industrial designer that went into making it. If you look outside, I see lots of trees, and that's arborists who work on the trees, city planners and forestry technicians and foresters that decide where they're planted and what type. The pavement that we walk on outside is civil engineers and construction management and construction. So there's a huge variety of of work out there, but we also think about, what does the world need right now? We talk about all the issues that are going on, and people are well aware of, from pandemics to environmental change to human rights. And we look at, what is the world in need of right now? What do you want to get better at? What do you want to learn more about? And where can we find that overlap? And again, to remind you that it's not about making one decision. It's more of a refinement process. As Rebecca mentioned, we're always learning, and our career is a lifelong journey that we're on. But we want to have a direction we're moving in, but we want to be open to new experiences. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca for talking about our second category of student.
Yeah, so I guess this is the bulk of you in the room. You have a bit of a career direction, but you're open-minded. I feel like this is such a healthy space to be in. Like we kind of said, I think this is a very agile and modern kind of way of approaching a career. So I think that's really awesome that you are, you have a direction, but you're still open-minded, and you understand that there's way more out there in the world of work that you might not have heard of yet, and that you do want to explore. So for those of you that are in this piece, usually we'll start with a lot of the same ideas. Holland Code and your values and things like that can help us to identify more ideas based on who you are, of course. The other way I like to start in my conversations with these students is what you like about Plan A, or the idea that you kind of have right now. It's really common for students to say something like, I know it's healthcare, but I'm not sure what in healthcare, because I've only really heard of a doctor or a nurse. I know there's way more in healthcare that I haven't heard of before, I'm not aware of. So how can I explore other jobs in healthcare and open my mind a little bit that way? So that's something we'll commonly do, is help people explore. Of course, it's also useful to think about why you liked that. So for another path, common thing that people come in with is that they have an idea of a particular program they want to enter, or they have an idea of a profession they'd like to be in, but they're worried about getting in because it's competitive. For example, maybe you want to go to med school, or you're interested in law or nursing or business, and some of those can be hard to enter if your GPA is in great shape. So that's another thing we'll do, is we'll start with, okay, why did you like that job to begin with? And begin to think of other similar jobs. For example, if you want to be a lawyer, it might be because you're interested in human rights, which might mean that human rights officer is a really good fit, or a labor relations advocate, or you could be interested in working in child protection if you're interested in that kind of advocacy work. So we can open up to other ideas that have similar flair to them that maybe you hadn't heard of before. Of course, one degree does equal lots and lots of options. So it's worth it to explore and to kind of let go of that worry that I've made a choice and I have to go one direction with it, and to know that once I have the degree, I can add on another master's degree. A lot of programs don't have specifics. Some are very specific about academic requirements to get into them, but others are more open-ended. So you can kind of keep lots of options open as you move forward. And often there's more than one way to reach a goal. So for example, in my office, we have lots of career consultants working here, and we have a really diverse educational pathways that we took to get to the job. I have a psychology degree from my undergrad. We have people that have education degrees, people with environment, nutrition, business, social work. So really, really broad. And we're all doing the same job. So that's the other cool thing is there's often more than one way to get somewhere. And sometimes even for things like accounting or other areas like that, there's more than one degree that would actually work, or there's similar jobs you could get into. So that's a great reason to come talk to us individually as well as if you want to open that up. If you're interested in exploring this on your own, we have a really good web page where you can explore occupations by industry. The URL is on the screen and it's also linked in your handout. So this is cool because we have everything sorted by sector. So you can explore jobs related to business, science jobs, healthcare, arts, culture, rec and sport, education, law, social and community services. And then we have one for sales and trades as well. So this is a cool one. You can click in and you can see jobs that are kind of in that theme area and learn more about them. So for when you know what you want to be or you know where you're headed, another thing we do is help people reach that goal. So even if it's a general direction, we can help you with moving forward in that general direction, or if you have a very specific plan in mind, we can help you to reach that goal. So how do we do this? One thing we'd like to start with is doing your research. So it's really important if you have a plan in mind or direction in mind, or if you're weighing options, maybe you have a couple ideas and you're not sure which direction you want to head, it's really valuable to do occupational research. One way to do this is through experience. For me in my career, I found working in volunteering was one of the most valuable things that I did for me to discover more about who I am, but also to allow me to learn from people working in that job by working alongside them and really getting a sense of what they do can be really helpful. You can also check out things like our occupations library, which I'm going to talk about more on the next slide, as well as the academic calendar, which has information that you can learn about different disciplines and things like that, what's required to get a particular degree, and also to explore the different courses, because if you're going in one direction, it's important for you to think about, okay, do I actually like the courses that are involved in this? A really common thing I have is for students that are interested in being a dietitian because they're really interested in food, and then they find out that you have to do chemistry to become a dietitian, and they're like, oh, I really don't like chemistry. That's a lot of chemistry in that degree. Maybe I want to look at other options like being a chef or something like that. Then we have job postings as another great opportunity for exploration. I love looking at job postings because they give you a snapshot of the labor market and the required skills and experiences that employers are seeking. So on a job posting, it'll say what education is expected, how many years of experience in different areas. And if you look at this early in your degree, you almost have a roadmap of what you need to do to get to that particular job. For example, a social services position might say that you need to have 3 years of experience with at-risk youth to get the job. So if you looked at that in first year, that's awesome. Say you're doing a 3-year general psychology degree, you have 3 years to get 3 years of experience working with at-risk youth, right? So it's a good time to start building those experiences that are required so that you can be a good candidate when you're applying for full-time jobs. Another way that we help students is with our career mentor program. So if you're interested in a particular job, we can match you up with someone in that occupation so you can interview them about it. This is awesome because it allows you to actually hear directly from the person how they like their job, what they don't like, how to be successful in that profession, and all kinds of great information about what it's really like. If you're interested in that, on the handout, you can go to our website and click on the mentor program link. It starts up in September if you want to sign up for it then. This is our occupations library. So as you can see, we've got a huge list of the alphabet up there with tons of different occupations. And when you click into them, there's a lot more details. So we have a blurb about what the occupation is like. We have information on days in the life, interviews with people in the field, labor market information, how much money they make, professional associations, relevant job boards, stuff like that. And then we also have the Holland code for that occupation that we talked about before. That might help you think a little bit about if it kind of is in line with some of the stuff you're interested in. And then for those of you that said you were open-minded and you wanted to explore similar occupations, we do have a section for that. So for example, if you were thinking you wanted to be a physicist, there's a whole bunch of different similar occupations listed there so that you can expand your mind a bit and think about similar things. So getting experience and starting early is really critical. I hope that this can inspire you to do that so that you can learn more about yourself and also set yourself up to get the jobs that you're interested in when you graduate. Can go to the next slide, Trevor. We'll just skip through this a little bit. So here's a few pieces of information about other ways we help students that know where they're headed. So if you're looking for a summer job later on, if you're interested in getting resume help, job search help, interview prep, please don't hesitate to reach out to us throughout your degree for help with that. We do that individually and in workshops. And then we also, of course, will be helping in these when you're graduating as well. But of course, throughout your degree, we help with all of this too.
Great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. So I'm going to go through this piece now just about setting yourself up for success. We talk about the idea of careers being a straight line, and I think this is sort of a little bit of a myth that gets perpetuated a lot. But if you talk to people about their career, you'll find that what they thought they were going to do when they were 14 or 15 or 16 or 17 changes over the course of their life due to events happening, due to opportunities. Even for those who have a plan and maybe got into the area of work they wanted, they often might get a promotion that came out of nowhere. And I would and the reason, and this is actually a really normal response, because as you move through your career journey, you know, different things are going to become more important to you. You're going to grow and develop as a person. You're going to learn new things about yourself and about the world around you. We also know that chance events happen to us. And, you know, what's important, though, is how we respond to them. You know, you coming to university is already making a choice to come and expose yourself to new types of courses, education, people, and they're going to provide opportunities. And what we always emphasize is really maintaining a balance between flexibility, so being open to new experiences. If you find something you didn't think you were going to enjoy, but now you enjoy it, how do we take advantage of that and move and not dismiss things that along the way that we learn? And balancing that with persistence. So maybe something we want to get better at, we're not very good at the start. That makes a lot of sense. The first time I want to learn how to drive a car, but the first time I was learning to drive, I wasn't very good at it. Doesn't mean I should give up on it, though. It means that we're learning something new. But you want to balance that with being flexible, and that's one thing we work a lot with students on: is how do we know how long we should stick with something and keep growing and developing and getting better in it versus trying new things and moving and adopting based on what type of feedback we're getting. And we really focus on optimism. We really want, we work from sort of a hope-centered, hope-fueled approach in our career center. We find that without that, everything else kind of falls apart. You need to be hopeful about the world around you and your career future. And we really strive to infuse that into everything we do. So again, seek out opportunities, be open-minded, explore, put yourself out there. You know, trying new things doesn't mean that you're lost. It means that you're flexible, and that's what we need in the world. All right, Rebecca.
All right. So for when I work with students, one of the things that I often tell them is to stop searching for your career soulmate. It's really common for us to feel like there's one perfect job and we'll just know when we find it and it'll be perfect and we'll be headed on a pathway towards career happiness and well-being. The reality is there's more than one job out there that would make us happy and that we would enjoy. And most of us are going to actually have about 15 different jobs in our career in our lifetime. So it's very, very freeing to let go of the idea that there's a right answer to what's coming next in your career. I try to encourage students to, instead of thinking about what they want to do forever, just to think about what they want to do next. And we can always be so creative and thoughtful about keeping your options open while you explore, and knowing that when you make one choice, it often isn't shutting a door, it's just taking a next step, and that's okay. And we can keep moving forward. One way that we can be really thoughtful in this process is to use reflection throughout our career development. I find that when we're really busy, especially for university students, we can get really bogged down in just reacting to what's happening to us in a particular moment and not really thinking about the long term, not really even thinking about if we like what we're doing or we don't, and how that's going to inform what we want to do next. It can be really, really valuable to take a moment to reflect and explore so that we can move forward more thoughtfully. I know for myself in my career, sometimes I didn't do this because I was just reacting to what was happening. For example, I worked at career services for 3 years in my undergraduate degree, and yet somehow it didn't occur to me that even though I absolutely loved that job and everything about it, it didn't occur to me that I could just do that long term and that it could be something that would be a really good pathway for me. I didn't realize that until I left my role at career services and worked somewhere else after I graduated, that I wanted to come back and I wanted to explore being a career consultant. If I'd just done a little bit of reflection, I would have realized that I was already somewhere that I wanted to be and that I might want to follow that path. So I always encourage people to take a minute and think about what they like about what they're doing, what they don't like, and then use that to make intentional decisions about what you want to do next.
All right.
So career planning, it really matters. It helps you to make thoughtful decisions about your studies and get the right experiences. So we hope that this encouraged you to use our services and also to engage in some of these different strategies and just mindsets to help you be more successful in your career. Of course, remember this kind of a take-home message. You don't need to know right now. And you've already made a lot of great career choices. Just coming to university and choosing U of M was a career choice. So good for you.
I want to echo that as well, Rebecca, that I guarantee you when I started university, I wasn't like, Mom, Dad, going to university. I'm going to be a career consultant to university students. And, you know, it was a, sort of an evolution along the career journey. So absolutely.
Totally. So some things to think about, some tips that we compiled from some of our colleagues at Career Services. Follow what you're curious about. Try things. Experiencing new things will give you knowledge. When in doubt, you know, just do it. Try it out. See what you think. Trying things is one of the most effective ways to learn. And then take the time to reflect, plan, act, and repeat. Making mistakes is totally okay, and the goal is just to grow from them. Use your community of support, so that can be us at Career Services. We'd love to chat with you, as well as the other important people in your life that can help you with this decision, or these decisions, I should say. Keep your eyes open to opportunity. Sometimes, like for me, it's staring you right in the face, and it's important to be aware of that and take those opportunities and make those opportunities for yourself. And then finally, career development is a lifelong process of designing your way forward. So this is all of these different skills you can use now, but also keep using them throughout your career so that you can make thoughtful next steps. So of course, the conversation does not and should not end here. We would love to engage with you in the handout, which I'm not sure if anyone came in later, I'm just gonna pop it into the chat again, just in case anyone missed the last one or they had to leave and come back. So there's links in there for our website, our career planner, where you can engage in some of those individual reflections and assessments, as well as you can talk to us one-on-one or go to one of our workshops. Our workshops that this slide is our handout. So if you want to pause the video for those of you that are watching this after the fact, please feel free to take a screenshot of this so that you have these links. And then on the next slide, we have information on our Career Choices workshop. Again, that's linked in the handout or on that previous slide if you're watching this later. And those career choices workshops, the dates are on the screen, and there's a link for you to register for them. So that would be a more intensive conversation about your career. There's also information on the handout of how to engage with us. So there's information on the contact information, which is on the screen here. So right now we're meeting with students, of course, from a distance. So you can have an individual appointment with us to talk to us via Zoom or on the phone, or sometimes we've been going back and forth by email for people who can't talk out loud in their current situation. So yeah, we would love to talk to you and have these deeper conversations about your career and help you feel like you're headed in the right direction. So I guess now we'll open the floor to questions. I guess I'll pass it over to Joseph here.
Hey, thank you, Trevor and Rebecca, for that wonderful presentation. I've learned some new information myself. I hope you guys have also done the same. So I'll now open the chat for students' questions. So as questions start to come in, I'd like to remind everyone that the presenters will be focusing on answering questions around the section topic. If you have questions about your